Virgin Galactic is edged closer to space, while at the same time carrying a third crew member aboard its space plane VSS Unity for the first time. Spaceship Two took off as usual, mounted between the twin fuselages of its White Knight 2 mothership from the Mojave Air and Spaceport just outside Los Angeles in California. The four-engine jet-powered White Knight 2 took the spacecraft to an altitude of around 50,000 feet before releasing it.
3, 2, 1, release.
Fire.
Spaceship Two then ignited its rocket engine, pointed to the heavens, and climbed to a record apogee of almost 90 kilometers or 295,000 feet, just over 10 kilometers short of the 100-kilometer high internationally recognized official start of space. The latest test flight comes just months after Unity reached the lower 80-kilometer high US-recognized boundary of space for the first time.
Hey, welcome to Space Scotland. Congrats, Steve.
Welcome to the club, astronaut.
Thanks, Space. I like this club.
The mission was the fifth rocket-powered test flight by Virgin Galactic in the skies above California during the current test campaign. As well as establishing a new altitude record for Spaceship Two, the flight also set a new speed record for Unity of Mach 3.04. Also, for the first time, Unity carried a three-person crew instead of just the usual two pilots. Virgin Galactic Chief Astronaut Instructor Beth Moses accompanied the pilots on the test flight in order to check out what future space tourists can expect to experience during their journeys, and also to act as mission specialists to monitor research payloads aboard the flight as part of NASA's Flight Opportunities Program.
Well, I was privileged to be the first cabin evaluator in Spaceship Two, VSS Unity. As the Chief Astronaut Instructor, I just performed the first in-flight cabin evaluation in space of what our customers will experience in flight. So it was a great day. So the heart of the evaluation was obviously the in-space microgravity portion. So once the rocket motor cut off, the pilots cleared me to unstrap from my seat. The first thing actually I did was start my stopwatch so I would know when to get back in my seat. And then I unstrapped and did a slow egress to a window, took a look at the beautiful clear view out the window. And then just to make sure I could safely strap back in and that there was no issue with the hardware, I went ahead and strapped my lap belt back in. Once that was all done, I unstrapped again and evaluated a different way to get out of the seat. And then I evaluated a part of the cabin to see how it rotated around me. And then I went up to evaluate the view you can get from apogee out of the top windows, which was silent and beautiful and clear, and I was quite happy to be near the cockpit with our pilots to celebrate apogee, and we all sort of marveled at how magic it was. Then after apogee, I proceeded with cabin evaluations. I took a look at the upside down view, kind of Spider-Manning along the ceiling to see what you could see doing that, and then took a glance at the back of the cabin, and then headed back to my seat and evaluated how to get back in a seat, and was strapped in for entry G. And interestingly, you could sort of see ice crystals right out the window, and then the beautiful curvature of the Earth. It was so black in space and so clear and bright, especially with snow on the mountains. You could see the Pacific Ocean, see the southwestern United States. I felt like I was infinitely high. It was just beautiful. It was the most amazing thing. So clear.
After reaching apogee and experiencing a few minutes of weightlessness, Unity began to re-enter the atmosphere at Mach 2.7, eventually gliding to a perfect runway landing back at the Mojave Airport. The mission has achieved several firsts for a commercial manned spaceflight, including the first time 3 people have flown in space aboard a commercial spaceship, the first time a non-pilot flew aboard a commercial spaceship into space, and the first time that a crew member has floated freely without restraints in space aboard a commercial spacecraft. The successful flight's good news for the more than 600 people who've already paid their $250,000, or at least put down a deposit, for one of Virgin Galactic's planned 90-minute suborbital tourist space flights. To find out more, Andrew Dunkley speaking with astronomer Dr. Fred Watson.
Space tourism, and Virgin Galactic has just done a flight which has been historic for more than one reason. Obviously, it was a success, and very spectacular images on the BBC News website if you want to look it up. But something else extraordinary happened here, and it involved one of the astronauts.
Indeed, that's right. Let me read what he said when he came back down and landed back in the Mojave Desert.
Well, if you're going to quote him, better do the accent.
That's what I was going to say. It was thrilling yet smooth and nicely controlled throughout, with a view at the top of the Earth from space, which exceeded all our expectations. I'm sorry, Dave. Dave Mackay. Really sorry. Probably
That was really good. Really good.
Yeah. Look, as an honorary Scotsman, I can get away with that usually.
And he is the first ever Scottish astronaut.
He is, that's right.
As a consequence.
He's from well up in the north of Scotland, from Helmsdale, which is way up in the Highlands.
Well, I mean, that's not an achievement because he's close enough to walk.
That's right. That's right. So he's the first Scottish-born pilot to travel to space. And by space, what Virgin means is, I think they mean above 80 kilometres. But this time they've gone beyond that. Dave Mackay took the rocket plane up to 90 kilometres. It looks as though it has been an absolutely perfectly successful trip, and that the footage that we've seen, it shows these elated pilots taking the spacecraft up. I think what happens, Andrew, is the rocket motor. So it's dropped from its mothership at about 15 kilometres above the Earth, which is 40,000 feet-ish or something like that. I can't do the calculation. I'm sure you will in a minute. And it's dropped from that height, and then they fire the rocket motor, which I think burns for about 30 or 40 seconds, something like that, accelerating the spacecraft up to a speed that basically, once the rocket motor cuts out, it coasts the rest of the way up to what's called the apogee, the point furthest away from the centre of the Earth, where the spacecraft turns around and starts coming back again. And so for all that time, when the rocket motor's not firing, until the air brakes start on its way back down, for all that time you're weightless. And it's about 4 minutes, I think, the total time. So a great experience. And seeing things like this, what surprised me a bit, or maybe encouraged me a bit, Andrew, is the fact that the report that we've seen on this is pretty low key, which is almost Virgin's saying, look, guys, this is getting pretty routine. We need to make a big splash about it because we're going to be doing this every day soon. So I think it's rather an interesting dynamic in the report.
Yes, indeed. One of the most spectacular spaceships I think I've ever seen. It's straight out of a science fiction story, that thing. The craft is just beautifully winged. It's got a single fuselage with a very pointy nose, and it's got the portals, it's got the rocket engine, it's got the fins and the wings. I mean, it looks like an attack craft from an alien race. I mean, it looks amazing. It's spectacular.
It does. It's definitely a spaceship, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. There's no denying it. I mean, that's what a spaceship should look like.
Yeah. It looks a bit different when it's coming down because it folds in half. The wing basically it's what's called a canting wing. So it actually has a hinge all the way along it, and the back half of it folds up almost at a right angle with the line of the wing to act as an air brake. And that clearly works very well.
Yes, indeed. So where does this put Virgin Galactic in the race to put tourists in space? I mean, we've got a couple of entities working on this. This one sounds like it's put them in a pretty good position.
I think that's right. The great thing about Virgin Galactic is they've been completely upfront with all their pluses and minuses. They have taken us the whole way, even though for many years we've been hearing that the first commercial flights will be next year. I do think they have handled this with great care and done all they can to ensure the safety of their passengers and to make sure that what they're talking about is actually going to work. And it's it is a good, reliable product.
So was this basically a test run of what the tourists will actually
pretty well
experience?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Basically, you go up and then you come down again. But for their $200,000, which was the initial price for these, you get a bit more than that because I think you get a week of training and instruction and just finding out all there is to know about space tourism, and you probably get a few good meals and a couple of nice glasses of wine, I would imagine.
Yeah, you have to eat it all out of a tube, but it's still fun.
That's on the ground, not in the eye.